Okay, class, so that is how we set up a proportion and solve for x. Are there any questions? Okay, let's move on then. The next section we're going to do today covers word problems and involved. What do you think went wrong here? Does this sound like an engaging lesson? Are the students are actively participating? Would you think that this is for the adult learners? Or would they be interested in what they are being taught? Now, as educators, we know the importance of what we are teaching, but the students may not necessarily be aware of this. Now, it's up to you to teach them how to do something and why to do something. So how do we do this? How do we motivate adult learners to realize that what we teach them will be useful to them? How do we inspire them to think out of the box and solve problems creatively? How do we as educators find a way to show students that what they are learning has a value and meaning that can be applied to the real world and can be engaging to learn? Now we can do this by using a method called problem-based learning, or PBL. What is this, you may ask? According to Stanford University, problem-based learning is a teaching strategy where students work with classmates to solve complex and authentic problems that could help develop content knowledge as well as problem-solving reasoning, communication, and self-assessment skills. Now, with this technique, students learn that the skills they are learning are necessary for their fields of study, and later in life, this could help them to boost their interest in what they are being taught. Overall, this is a technique where students learn by doing. They will be able to solve complex and open-ended problems that have meaning to them, which makes the class more engaging than a typical college lecture. According to Professor David Kwon, learning must be relevant to learners. In order to be effective and efficient, it is important for the problem or activity to be relatable in order for learning to occur at all. It should be active, integrated, and a constructive process which is influenced by both contextual and social factors. Problem-based learning goes hand in hand with experiential learning, which the Association for Experiential Education defines as a philosophy and methodology in which educators purposely engage with students in direct experience and focused reflection in order to increase knowledge, develop skills, and clarify values. Now, through experiential learning, students learn through problem solving and critical thinking instead of recalled memorization, much like problem-based learning. Now, do you know what is the best part of problem-based learning is? It can be implemented in almost any subject, especially at the college level. This technique is often used in the medical field where students learn through dealing with scenarios. However, this technique is also used in education, business, psychology, dentistry, engineering, law, music, architecture, and the list. Now, how do we implement it? Problem-based learning can be used at 3 different levels. First is in a curriculum level, second, group level, and third is in individual student level. In the curriculum level, all problem and objectives are identical for all students. At the group level, each group can have either the same problem and different objectives or vice versa. Lastly, at the individual student level, the instructor can predetermine objectives for each individual students.
Now let's get into setting up. Here are some key elements and features of PBL. You'll want to make sure to provide students with the same amount of information. This allows you to make everyone has the same foundation and that everyone has an equal opportunity to solve the problem, then decide on a problem for students to solve. The problem you create should have a multiple solution or solution path, meaning there is no right or wrong answer or right or wrong way of finding the answer. The more broad in general the problem, the better. Be open-ended and difficult enough to have students collaborate with one another and think deeply. If the question is too simple, the students will not be motivated to solve it. If the question is too difficult, some students will in the sense give up and only part of the class will experience the learning process. Encourage deep learning. Have students use what they already know and build off of that. Don't just recall information, contain content that is real and applicable to the real world. Generate both interest and controversy, which causes the students to ask each other's questions and to discuss. Lastly, you want to create learning objectives. Help students by creating lists of tasks to complete. These steps is especially helpful with complex scenarios because students can delegate and take on various roles and have individual tasks to complete. As students work collaboratively with their groups, one of the aims of problem-based learning is that they go through a process called self-directed learning, which occurs when students take their own initiative and feel as though they are once in charge of their own learning. This helps students become self-sufficient and helps prepare them for lifelong learning. Studies show students who become self-directed learners are independent, willing to take initiative, persistent in learning, self-disciplined, self-confident, organized in terms of time and work, able to develop completion plan, goal-oriented, and motivated to learn as much as they can. In addition to becoming self-directed learners, students should also be identifying their own learning needs, leading classroom discussion and assessing works done by other students and themselves. To be successful students, you need to keep in mind what they already know in order to solve these problems. If this were a traditional classroom, the teacher would be the center of the instruction and guidance. However, in problem-based learning, students are the center of and the role of the teacher changes to a facilitator, tutor, or cognitive coach. It is the teacher's role to guide exploration, provide feedback, and create classroom environment that will encourage collaboration. Most importantly, the teacher must encourage students to think for themselves and to become self-directed learners, and mistakes are bound to happen, and that's okay. If there are learning opportunities, mistakes don't represent a lack of ability, and students should be encouraged to learn from their mistakes. So this problem-based learning actually work? Research shows that students first and foremost learn to work in a group. Group work helps students create learning communities which help them feel comfortable with creating new ideas and raising questions. Improve communication and interpersonal skills. Stimulates task involvement, helps students manage group dynamics, and motivate students because they are all part of the solution and each is accountable for his role. Research also shows that PBL enhances long-term memory due to group work, making learning that much more prominent. In addition to benefiting from group work, students also improve their problem-solving skills instead of recalling information and facts. They learn to build connection between these facts and able to supply them to multiple scenarios. When students are a part of problem-based learning, they report being enthusiastic about the work and enjoy working with other students because of the controversial discussion that arise. They also report understanding the subject better after being able to integrate it, as well as having higher self-esteem and self-confidence. Benjamin Franklin once said, "Tell me and I forget. To teach me and I remember. Involve me and I will learn." Now let's go back to our classroom and see what should be done.
Okay class, now I want you to pretend you're all getting ready for a class party and you have to prepare enough treats for everyone in the class based on the recipes I gave you. I want you to break up into two groups of 3 and you're going to use what we've learned up to this point to figure out how much of ingredient you'll need for the proper amounts of serving. I'll be handing out detailed instructions as well as a different process. Now the students will get to experience first and how they learned can be applied to as a simple task such as cooking and baking.